What exactly is idolatry? Of course, this is one of the major and main core problems of our rebellious nature in our flesh. If there was one major issue that branched out into all the other issues that we have had, mankind, us, all of us, humanity, it all comes from idolatry. But to answer what idolatry is, first we have to define what it means to serve something, right? Because idolatry is to serve other gods besides the one true living God. In ancient times, that literally looked like people bowing, right? Bowing to these idols, and that's another story, these figurines, and there's a deep history as to why we crafted specifically these figurines and bowed to them. People were not as foolish to do that as one might believe in our modern times. There's a deeper reason for that specific thing. And so that's clear, right? There were temples dedicated to God back in 2 Kings where but that were merged with paganism, merged with Baal worship, children sacrificed to Moloch, prostitutes inside of the temple. There was horses tied up outside. I think it was 2 Kings 23, where there are horses tied up out in front of the temple because they would get on those horses right before daybreak, ride them up onto a hill so that they could bow to the sun as the sun rose. So that's blatant idolatry, right? We all know that. We all recognize that as idolatry. So does that mean that that is all it looks like, is physical external worship of another god that we erect? In our time, it's actually a lot different. It's the same thing, but it's expressed differently. It's expressed more internally. So in Ezekiel 14:3 says, "Son of man, these men have set up idols in their hearts and put wicked stumbling blocks before their faces. Should I let them inquire of me at all?" What does it mean to erect an idol in our heart? Well, first, what does it mean to serve something? To serve something, what you worship is the thing that what I call an existential why. It is your reason. It is what you get up every day and you serve. Here in America, it's the American dream, right? It's this little thing called success. Most Americans, their main concern is, am I going to have a successful life? And that success is defined by things like material wealth, status, fame is a big one in our time. We are all scrambling to become somebody. Become somebody. We feel like we need to be taken seriously. In most of our hearts, deep down, what we are worshiping, the idol in our heart, is becoming successful by this world's standards in the eyes of this world. Basically the opposite of John the Baptist, right? We are trying not to be John. That's our idol. Don't be somebody that other people look past. Don't be just another face in the crowd. Stand out in the world's way. And so what do? If most of us go to college and sacrifice 4+ years of our life, it is so that we can have more wealth later in our lives. It is so that we can have that master's degree or that PhD degree, so we can have that DR dot behind or before our name. If that's what you're waking up, if that's the reason driving your life, that's your idol. Another one is pleasure or fun. Whatever is the deepest meaning of your life, whatever drives you through day to day. I love rock climbing, and I have a lot of rock climbing friends who rock climbing is the deepest meaning of their life. It is going out and having adventures. It is scaling this particular rock, or it is succeeding in my particular project at the time. And those aren't inherently bad things. The problem is when it becomes an idol. The problem is when it becomes your why, rather than just a hobby, rather than just an activity that you enjoy getting better at. If it becomes your core reason for existing, your higher power, it's an idol. When you do it without focusing on God, or when you let it get in between you and God and make it your God. That is what it means to have an idol, to worship something. You know, this is why John the Baptist was named the greatest man who has ever lived, is because he had one thing in his life. He didn't even have a house. Paul wrote about how marriage is a beautiful thing, but it is better not to be married. Why? Because having a wife, your attention is divided. You have to become something in the world and focus your attention on the world enough so that you can provide for a family. And then your time is being spent on your relationship. And that's, again, not a bad thing inherently, but this is why Paul said that it would be better for you not to. Even Jesus says, one who can handle not being married should not marry. It's because the ultimate definition of a successful life, by the objective measure that God has created, is sole, single-minded devotion and worship of God. You know, it's interesting to know, it's so funny how many comments I think there are just a loud few, but there are a lot of comments talking about this cross around my neck right here. It just blows my mind that people can see that and think graven image, idol worship. It's like, you cannot have the first understanding of what it means to serve a thing if you think that a physical object, the moment you see it, must be idolatry. Let me put it this way. Do you all know about the bronze snake, right? In the desert, where the Lord sent the snakes and were biting people, and poisonous snakes. They were not very nice snakes. They were very aggressive, very mean, and they were biting people all over the time, and they were going to kill everybody. And God told Moses to craft a bronze snake and hold it, stick it in the ground, I think it was, and let it be above people, and anybody who looked up at it will be saved. Basically just doing what God said would save you. Obedience and trusting God would save you. So that was a famous object. For hundreds of years, the Israelites kept this object. But what happened? People started to worship the object. But what did they do? Well, they were bowing to it. They gave it a name. Hezekiah later had to smash the darn thing in Isaiah's time because people made it their god. 2 Kings 18:4 says, he being Hezekiah, removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke into pieces the bronze snake that Moses had made. For up to that time, the Israelites had been burning incense to it. It was called Nehushtan. So they named the thing, they started bowing to it. This is our God. This is our Savior. That's idolatry. Before they did that, the bronze snake was not an inherently evil object. Just like this cross is not an inherently evil object just because it was crafted. A crafted object is not evil by nature. It is when we serve it. I can assure you I do not bow to this thing every night. I assure you that this is only a symbol hanging around my neck of ownership. Who owns me? And a big reason that I decided to wear a cross, that I felt drawn to wear a cross, is because I still had a temper when I first found the Lord, quite a temper. And before I had a cross, I found myself giving myself leeway and having like outbursts, because when I first found the Lord, people were being very mean to me. It was like an on and off switch. It was like suddenly there was a beacon, especially after my baptism, where people were being mean to me at the gas station. I couldn't go anywhere without people being mean. And I found myself giving myself leeway because I'd lash out at these people. And then I'd be in my truck later, be like, man, I'm glad that they didn't know I was a Christian, because I just would have made Christ look pretty bad right there. This thing made me very accountable, because guess what happens the moment you want to lash out at somebody? When you turn around and they're being mean to you, their eyes go like this. They look right at your cross. And it's like, whew, okay, I gotta up my game a little bit here, because I'm representing somebody that I consider more than myself. And if I lose control here, what does that look like, right? It desecrates this name who owns me. I see this as an equivalent of writing, like Toy Story. Woody had the name Andy written under his shoe. It's the same thing here. It's a tag of ownership. I don't think this thing saves me. I think if I were to cut this thing off and never wear it again, that doesn't change my salvation, right? Idolatry is a state of the heart. It's a state of the heart, and you don't have to bow physically to anything for you to have an idol in your life. If it's success, or if it's pleasure, or anything that keeps you from drawing nearer to God. I've spoken about the cliff in another video, where you have to die to be born again. But what does that mean? It means that you've all heard of the narrow path, right? I like to call it the path of love, very narrow. Now, at the very beginning of that path, before you're even on the path, there is a doorway that is perfectly big enough for you and only you to squeeze through. Anything you're holding on to in your hands, you got to leave on the other side of that doorway to get onto the path. What is that you have to leave in? This is a spiritual doorway, right? So you have to leave spiritual things behind. You have to drop the identity that you created in this world, for this world, in order to be in this world. You got to leave it at the door forever. You can't go back. You start over. However old you are, when you realize this is what you got to do to squeeze through that doorway, you are nobody now. You're dead. The old you's dead. Left back at the other side of that door that you cannot go back on, You leave whoever you think you are, you leave that identity behind. You drop your future aspirations and any plans you thought you made for your life, you leave it at the door. You let go of all those things that you were calling your God before. All your idols you leave at the door. Now, you are willing to give up anything, no matter how much you love a thing. I used to love fighting MMA. I left it at the door. My hiking and all that stuff, that was the higher purpose of my life. I served this thing called love, but most of my time I was spending in the outdoors, alone, climbing mountains, and that's not a bad thing. I still love to do that every once in a while. But that being the main core part of my life, I left that at the door. You leave it all at the door. Your material possessions. This is why you see a lot of the apostles in the book of Acts selling all their possessions and spending every day together. It's because that is a physical expression. I'm leaving it all at the door. You can't bring anything in here with you on this narrow path. You got to travel light. And you got to be willing to go somewhere in a heartbeat. You have to be willing to drop everything. You have to die. And then you serve one. And you live your life for an audience of one. So that's the opposite of idolatry, right? And the thing is, I don't care if you're atheist, I don't care if you call yourself a Buddhist or a Muslim or even a Christian. We all serve something. And many Christians are actually idolaters. Because the reason they get up every day and the reason they make goals and they go do things every day, the reason driving their life is not God's vision for the world. they still have their own vision for their lives that they are serving. They still want to be successful, and they think they can bring that with them. You cannot. You gotta leave it behind. It's that selfish ambition that's the hardest idol to let go of, because we have grown up in a world that says that's what your meaning for life is. That is how you live in a life of joy and peace. This is how you live. This is your meaning, is you have to create something in this world through your selfish ambition. You have to be somebody. Many Christians still, that's the reason they're doing everything still. For a lot of people, it's even the reason why they have a relationship with Christ, is because, oh yeah, Jesus, that's the guy that helps me get what I want. That's the guy that serves my idol with me. He helps me become successful. Prosperity gospel. He makes me rich. He's in my life for my reasons. No. You have to die to all that. Die. Can't go back. It's like waking up from a dream. No matter how good the dream was, you cannot now reconvince yourself that you're in a dream. You're waking up. You can't go back. It's like the Matrix. How silly would it have been if Neo had taken the red pill, realized he's in a fake world, a Matrix, and then just got busy like everybody else in the Matrix trying to become successful in the Matrix? How ridiculous would that have been? It's like that. And so there's a big death, right? But then you die every day, Paul said, because for the rest of your life, it's not going to be easy to stay focused like this every day of your life. You're going to have mornings like I do sometimes where you wake up, you're like, whew, this is tough. I feel like I'm dying right now. Satan will attack you with doubt. Oh, what if you made the wrong decision? What if you're wasting your life? How many times do you think Paul felt that? Or John the Baptist, while he's out there in the desert eating locusts and honey. You don't think that he was struck with that kind of doubt sometimes? Where he's like, oh man, I could just be wasting my life. But you go to God in those moments. You bring all that to him. And he'll take care of you from there, as long as you do it. But that's idolatry. That's what it means to serve. And we all do serve something.